Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Your host, as always, Dr. Jared Vasquez. Today, we are talking about the passing of boxer Simiso Buthelezi. We all saw the clip earlier this week, the viral clip of Simiso seemingly losing track of his opponent and punching the air. Well, we learned later that on that same night at 11 p.m., he was placed in a medically induced coma for a brain bleed. And the worst news were received this morning. Simiso Buthelezi passed away from the injuries he suffered in the boxing bout. A lot of questions are in the air. Many people are having the same question. How did such a small strike like the jab Simiso received cost a brain bleed that cost him his life? Well, in order to understand a brain bleed, let's just pull up a simple image of the brain. One of the most important anatomical structures in the brain are the intricate network of blood vessels that feeds the brain, and we're talking about the arteries, both, and the veins as well. And there's an important junction of brain and vascular structures, and this occurs near the meninges. These are the membranes that cover the brain, and these membranes have a rich network of arteries that connect directly to the brain. In order to understand the dynamics between the membranes, the arteries, and the brain, we have to understand the cranial vault is a circular vault. The brain lies inside. The brain is a gelatinous material, and when you have a trauma, there's a reaction to the trauma that we call contra coup trauma, and it puts shear on this little penetrating arteries, and these arteries break in some instances, and it bleeds out. Of course, the blood is toxic to the brain, and it causes what we call a midline shift. So as that bleed grows, it's occupying space, and there is absolutely nowhere to go, as the cranial vault is solid, it's made out of bone. There's no give. If there is a bleed in the stomach where there is give, there's elasticity in the abdominal cavity, and there's no increase in pressure so quickly as it does in the brain. Well, in some instances, it only takes a mild trauma to cause this bleed. A lot of fighters also cut weight, and when you cut weight, you dehydrate your fluids, and the cerebrospinal fluid, which is the fluid where the brain is floating on, gets reduced significantly, creating more tension in those veins that go from the membranes to the brain, and it's almost like you're tensing them up. So if you have a material that's a little bit more tense, it's easier to share, and it's easier to bleed from those shearing forces of the strikes. One thing that hasn't been talked about, and I think as a physician it plays a major role here, Simiso Buthelezi might have had a undiagnosed condition of the brain. And there are many, ranging from aneurysms to malformations of arteriovenous origin. So he might have had a complication that wasn't simply diagnosed. Here is the importance. When you reach the highest level of boxing, we need more rigorous testing when we have these guys who are training, getting faster, getting stronger, and getting better to know this. Granted, boxing, mixed martial arts, kickboxing, all combat sports are rough sports, and unfortunately, as vigilant as we might be, there's always gonna be deaths. But every time that we have a case like Simiso Buthelezi, which it was so out there, it was definitely so confusing, a symptom or a manifestation that we rarely see somebody fight the air and have this aberrant behavior inside the ring. So it lets us learn more, so we could be more efficient physicians in the future and prevent cases like this. May he rest in peace, and his family find peace. And hopefully economically they're fine. Of course, if anyone knows if there's any GoFundMe or any funds that can be donated, please don't hesitate and put the links here in the comments, in the comment section, as I will pin them to the top. Rest in peace, Simiso Buthelezi.